This is Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa. The story of resurgent and burgeoning Africa is here, only on the Pulse of Africa channel. Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.
Hello and welcome. You are watching Pulse of Africa News live from Addis Ababa, the diplomatic hub of Africa. We bring you the top stories from across the continent. I am Magdalite Naga and stay tuned. Let us start with Ghana. Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama on Wednesday urged the African continent to build strong regional production value chains for a competitive age in manufacturing and trade. During the two-day African Trade Summit, Mahama said that it is time for the continent to build competitive industries across borders where raw materials, intermediate goods and final products move seamlessly within regions. According to him, the creation of a single market of over 1.3 billion people through the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, provides the scale needed to transform the continent into a viable manufacturing and investment destination. For the AfCFTA visions to become a reality, the continent needs to tackle industrialization as a collective to drive the maximum benefits from its potential, added the Ghanaian president. Industrialization cannot succeed within fragmented national markets. Not every country can produce everything, but together we can build competitive industries across borders, Mahama stressed. He noted that the continent must invest in transport corridors, energy grids and digital infrastructure, while harmonizing standards and regulations. Industrial integration requires market integration, Mahama added. He called on African governments to provide leadership and stability, the private sector to invest and innovate, financial institutions to design long-term financial solutions, and development partners to align with Africans' priorities, while Pan-African institutions coordinate and remove barriers to integration. The summit is organized by African Trade Chamber, a continent-wide organization leading advocacy for the continent to mobilize the need for the capital, industrialization and trade. Tanzanian Prime Minister Mwigulu Nchembe on Thursday assured that the public that the country has sufficient food supplies and urged calm, citing strong natural reserves and the government's readiness to stabilize the market. Addressing members of the parliament in the capital Dodoma, Nchembe said Tanzania's natural food reserves stand at more than 400,000 tons, while above the required strategic level of 150,000 tons. He said the available stocks are adequate to ensure national food security and maintain surplus supplies across the country. Nchembe warned traders against unjustified food price hikes, stressing that the attempts to inflate prices would harm citizens and would not be tolerated by the government. The government, working closely with the National Food Reserve Agency, is ready to distribute food to areas facing localized shortage to ensure access to affordable supplies, he said.
Ethiopia's green legacy initiatives are restoring urban parks and expanding green spaces across our cities. Green spaces protect the environment and strengthen healthy, resilient communities.
Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema on Thursday assured diplomats accredited to the country that Zambia will hold peaceful, credible, and transparent elections in 2026. I know that there is an anxiety, but I want to assure you that in 2026, there will be credible, peaceful, and transparent elections, Hechelma said during the annual presidential greetings for the diplomatic corps. The country has held several by-elections over the past 4 years that were characterized by peace, he said, adding that the same will apply to the general elections scheduled for August 13, 2026. Hechelma, who is seeking re-election, reaffirmed the government's commitment to upholding peace, security, and stability ahead of the polls. He said that instead of worrying about whether the elections will be peaceful, the diplomatic corps should focus on supporting Zambia to ensure that all aspects of the electoral process are conducted properly. Hawa Hassan Mohammed, the Somali ambassador to Zambia, expressed optimism that the forthcoming elections will be peaceful, credible, and transparent. Mohammed, who is also the dean of the diplomatic corps, said Zambia has consistently demonstrated adherence to the principles of peace and respect for the rule of law, as reflected in peace and credible elections and smooth transitions of power. Meetings of the Libyan-Algerian Expert Committee were held in Tripoli on January 28 and 29 to prepare for the 15th session of the Joint High Executive Committee. Scheduled to be held in Algeria in the near future, the Libyan side was headed by Ashraf Mohammed Al-Taib, Director of the International Cooperation Department at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, while the Algerian side was headed by the Nuruddin Kandayo, Director General for the Arab countries at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad, and African Affairs. During these meetings, the existing cooperation between the two countries in all fields was reviewed and evaluated, along with ways to support and develop it in order to serve the interests of both countries and their brotherly people and elevate their religions to the highest levels. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, at the conclusion of the meetings, the two sides signed the minutes of their meetings, which covered the fields of economy, trade, investment, industry, scientific cooperation, energy, mining, agriculture, transportation, education, technical cooperation, security, consular affairs, customs, and tourism. Moving on to business news, we have the South African Reserve Bank, SARB, on Thursday kept its benchmark repurchasing rate unchanged at 6.75%, citing persistent inflation risks and highlighted global uncertainty. SARB Governor Lesajanta Kanyago said four members of the Monetary Policy Committee voted to hold rates, while two supported a 25 base point cut. The decision followed the release of December inflation data showing headline inflation edging up to 3.6% from 3.5% in November, which Kanyago described as the peak of inflation, with a gradual decline expected ahead. Kanyago said global risks remain elevated amid geopolitical tensions, rising public debt in major economies, threats to central bank independence, and safe haven flows into gold, alongside concerns about a possible artificial intelligence asset bubble. Domestically, he said that South Africa recorded 4 consecutive quarters of gross domestic product growth for the first time since 2018, largely driven by household consumption, while investment remained weak earlier in 2025, before recovering later in the year. Noting that the inflation target range has recently been narrowed to 3.5% from to 3.6%, Kanyago said the policy stance remains moderately restrictive, with interest rates expected to reach neutral levels around 2027. Our decisions will continue to be taken on a meeting-by-meeting basis, with careful attention to the outlook, data outcomes, and the balance of risks to the forecast, he added. The Republic of Congo's outstanding public debt fell in 2025 to $13.16 billion, equivalent to 74.11% of GDP, down from $13.50 billion in 2024. This marks a 2.49% annual reduction according to the 2026 to 2028 medium-term debt management strategy released by the Ministry of Finance on January 29, 2026. While the debt to GDP ratio improved, debt levels stay elevated relative to the economy. Domestic debt rose to $8.04 billion, representing 61% of total debt and 42.29% of GDP. It primarily compromises public securities, social creditors, and liabilities. This increased local market resilience, lower exchange rate risks, but heightens dependence on the domestic financial systems. External debt amounted to $5.12 billion, owned to bilateral, multilateral, and commercial creditors. Bilateral creditors hold the largest share at $2.35 billion, followed by multilateral creditors at $2.20 billion and commercial creditors at a $0.57 billion. Interest payments equaled to 2.63% of GDP. The average debt maturity is 6.39 years, signaling quicker domestic rollovers. Notably, 15.47% of the total debt, approximately $2.04 billion, matures within the next 12 months. This short-term maturity cluster driven by domestic obligations may strain treasury resources if financing terms deteriorate. Finally, sport news. The Confederation of African Football (CAF) has officially cleared that the referee who officiated the AFCON final, Jean-Jacques Nadala, followed a comprehensive disciplinary review. In a statement released after a full verification process, CAF confirmed that the disciplinary jury found no fault against the Congolese official. The panel concluded that the Nadala acted within the laws of the game and upheld the standards expected at the highest level of continental football. The decision brings an end to the speculation surrounding the officiating of the showpiece final, reaffirming CAF's confidence in the integrity of its match officials. Nadala's performance was described as rigorous and professional, earning praise from the highest levels of African football administration. CAF's clearance not only restores the reference standing but also reinforces the body's commitment to fair play, transparency, and due process in handling matters related to the officiating across its competitions. Now let's check out the latest weather forecast across the continent. That's all for this hour. Thank you so much for being with us. Goodbye for now.